Hello, everyone. Today, our topic is parties, the main political institution of modern society. The party system is the most important. Our first topic, historical emergence of party. At the end of the 18th century and the beginning of the 19th century, politics began to change. It was no longer on the domain of the nobility and kings. People started living in cities, reading newspapers, and discussing public issues. Voting rights gradually expanded, and more citizens gained the opportunity to vote. This created the need for permanent political associations that could represent the interests of different social groups and participate in elections. Thus, the first parties appeared not just temporary groups, but stable organizations with a program, structure, and the goal of coming to power. For example, in the United States, the Democratic and Republican Party merged in the 1790s. It was founded by Thomas Jefferson. This party advocated for broader participation of ordinary people in politics. It opposed strong central authority, stood for freedom and regional autonomy, and supported farmers, artisans, and the small bourgeois. In Great Britain, political division had different roots. Historically, two major groupings stood out: the Tories and the Whigs. The Tories were political current oriented toward preserving traditional institutions, supporting royal power, and the landed aristocracy. Over the time, the Tories transformed into the Conservative Party. The Whigs, of the contrary, stood for parliamentary freedoms and expansions of political participation, and reforms they gave rise to the liberal tradition. Tories, conservative defense of privileges. Whigs, supporters of parliamentary reforms and limiting the monarch's power. For example, in France, party practice received a strong impulse after the revolution. Political groups that emerged during revolutionary events developed into permanent association, reflecting sharp class and ideological conflicts. Their parties often arose from revolutionary struggle and had clearly defined programs for changing the social order. Thus, parties appeared as a response to change in society. When more people gained the right to vote and parliaments became an important part of power, and the need for organized political forces arose. Parties began to collect various social demands, turn them into programs, and nominate candidates for elections. Since then, parties have become an essential element of politics. They have their own ideology, structure, and the goal of participating in governing the countries. Our next topic: what is political party? A political party is a voluntary association of people that represents the interests of certain social groups, develops a political program, and seeks to participate in power through elections and work in representative bodies. A party combines ideology, organizational structure, and human resources to influence decision making and achieve its goals. Who is in a party? Leaders, deputies, activities, and ordinary members all take part in activities and decision making. What the party does: develops a program, nominates and supports candidates, conducts election campaigns, works in parliament and at the local level. Why a party is needed: aggregates society's demands into a unified agenda, selects personnel for governance, and provides a channel of communication between citizens and the state. Our next topic: political parties perform several key functions. Representation of interests. Parties collect the position of different social groups and turn their demands into political programs that propose concrete measures and solutions. Secondly, organization of election and mobilization of citizens. Parties nominate candidates, form lists, conduct election campaigns, and encourage people to participate in the political process. Third, formation and exercise of power. Winning parties create governments, determine political course, and take responsibility for implementing their programs. Fourth, social integration and political education. Through their activities, parties help citizens navigate politics, shape public values, and spread ideology. Fifth, communication between society and the state. Parties convey society's demands to the authorities and explain government decisions to citizens, acting as intermediaries in the dialogue between society and the power. Our next topic is the party system. A party system is the set of political parties in a country and the way they interact with each other in the struggle for power. It includes not only the number of parties but also the rules of their competition, types of coalitions, levels of influence, and mechanism by which parties come to power and replace one another. What defines a party system? Who and how can participate in political struggle? How stable parties are, how ruling coalitions are formed, what formats of competition exist, rivalry between two major parties, multi-party system with coalitions, dominance of one force. Functions and significance. A party system ensures order in the political process, regulated competitions, and provides channels for peaceful conflict resolution. When the system works effectively, it reduces the risk of political fragmentation and violence, simplifies government formation, and makes accountability of power predictable. Practical effect. The type of party system determines the stability of the cabinet of ministers, transparency of decision making, and the state's ability to carry out long-term reforms. For example, a two-party system often provides clear alternation of power, while a multi-party system requires coalition compromises but better reflect the diversity of social interests. Our next topic is party system and their significance for political stability. One party system, firstly, all power is concentrated in one party, provides high governability and stability, but limits political pluralism and opportunities for position. Secondly, two-party system, political life revolves around two major parties, makes alternation of power and elections more predictable. Competition is clear, but minorities may be underrepresented. Multi-party system, a wide spectrum of parties exists, reflecting diverse interests. Representation is high, stability is achieved through coalitions and compromises. Dominant party system, formally multi-party, but one party retains power for a long time and sets the course, combines elements of stability with limited competition, risk included reduced accountability, and lack of renewal of power. Fragmented multi-party system, many small parties and frequent change of coalitions provide strong representation of different groups but reduced stability and complicated long-term decision making. Our next topic, examples of party system and brief historical background. One party system, for example, China, the Communist Party of China, was founded in 1921 after the communist victory in the Civil War and the proclamation of the PRC in 1949. The party effectively became the sole center of power. The CPC sets the main political course, controls states' institutions, and manages personal policy. For example, two-party system. United States of America. The modern US party system developed gradually. In the 19th century, political life consolidated around two major blocs. The Democratic Party grew out of the Jeffersonism and Jacksonian Democratic Republicans. The Republicans Party emerged in the 1850s as an anti-clerical and anti-civil movement and quickly became the Democrats' main opponent. Since then, competition between the two major parties have defined federal elections and the alternation of power. Multi-party system, for example, Germany's modern system took shape after World War II. The main parties are the Christian conservatives and the Social Democrats, historically the largest forces. Later, the liberalism and Greens emerging in the 1970s and 80s as an ecological and post-materialistic movement, and the left formed later from the former East German Party and leftist groups joined. The proportional representation, electoral system, and the federal structure make coalitions the norm. Governments are formed through negotiations among parties, ensuring a wide range of interests but requiring compromising. What about Kazakhstan? Kazakhstan, we have a dominant party model. Formally, Kazakhstan has a multi-party system, but real political life is centered around one dominant force. The current dominant party, Amanat, formerly Nurotan, historically accumulated power, administrative resources, and personal networks after the collapse of the USSR. Other parties participate in election and parliament, but their influence is limited. Competition often occurs within loyal or controlled elements of the political field, while key decisions remain with the dominant party. This model provides relative stability and governability, but reduced opportunities for genuine alternation of power and full-fledged opposition politics. Japan. Dominant party system in Japan. Japan also formally has a multi-party system, but for decades the Liberal Democratic Party has played the key role. The LDP was formed in the post-war period as the dominant conservative force and has held power almost continuously thanks to its wide network of ties within the administration, business, and local elites. Opposition and new parties exist and occasionally gain strength, but the LDP remains the main force setting the political course. For example, Italy, fragmented multi-party system. Italy is a classic example of a fragmented multi-party system, and many parties in Italy, frequent coalitions, and regular change of governments. Such a system highly representative. It reflects the diversity of interests but is less stable in terms of forming long-term governments and consistent policies. Constant compromises and agreements among parties are required. Comparison. And of course, the dominant party model provides governability and predictability but limits competition. Fragmented multi-party system better reflect social diversity but demand compromises and consciences for stability. Our next topic, tradition parties are the losing influence, flexible network bases and protest movements are growing instead. This changed the ways of mobilization, representation and decision making. Decline of trust. Voters see old parties detached from real problems. Loss of mass membership, fewer members and active supporters. Ideological blurring. Parties increasingly resemble of one another. A rise in new form, social networks and movements provides fast channels of mobilization. In modern political sense is increasingly supplemented by informal, network-based and protest movements that operated outside classical parties and quickly influenced the agenda. Types and features, of course, network and protest movements. Mass outbreaks, 2010s percent, arise around the specific issues ecology, women's rights, anti-corruption, and mobilize through the internet and offline actions. Causes: accumulated social discounted accessibility of digital channels and declining trust in institution. Example: Yellow West, November 2008 and 2019. Trigger: tax increases and decline in real income, expansion through online coordination. Ecological and new electoral parties, formation 1970s and 1990s, institutionalization by 1990s and 2000s. The Greens grew out of the ecological and civic movements of the 1960s and 80s. Their transformation into parties accelerated in the 1980s, 1990s in response to rising ecological risk and the emergence of post-materialistic value. Causes: ecological disaster, scientific confirmation of risk, and dissatisfaction with traditional parties' handling of the green agenda. Populist leaders and parties. Waves 1990s strengthening after 2008. Populism uses direct communication and promises of quick solution. Causes of growth, economic shocks, inequality, lack of trust in elites, and effect of digital performance enable leaders' personal migration into the media space. Strength after the 2008 financial crisis and the migration crisis of the 2010s. Protest waves in Latin America, mass protests, major waves in 2019, 2020 were driven by economic difficulties, corruption scandals, and high social inequality. Causes: a combination of long-term inequality, institutional weakness, and trigger events, fare increases, tax hikes, corruption, and revolution. Dear students, our lesson is finished. Thank you very much. See you later.